Hello, beautiful internet people. Welcome to Untamed Ink. I'm Jasmine. I am a B2B marketing manager and I am joined by the lovely Alex.
Hi, I'm a copywriter with a lot of experience dabbling into so many different things. Yeah. So, Jasmine,
I love this already. So, Alex, why did we start this podcast?
well, we met in the digital landscape and we had so many unsolicited opinions about the world of digital work, and we really thought it would be good to get some conversations going to discuss issues that are unspoken and should be spoken about, or ones that just need repeating with our twist on them.
Because at the end of the day, we're just two internet small fries looking to make a difference in the world, one way, shape, or form.
So, fellow small fry, what was your untamed moment this week?
Oh God. So like we need to define untamed, right? So what do we mean by untamed, Alex?
Anything that's not filtered or outspoken that you shouldn't have maybe said or messaged or written about,
Oh,
in fact?
I don't know. I mean, in terms of unfiltered, so I went to, as you very well know, I went to karate combat on Saturday,
Oh, karate combat.
and I may have gone a bit mad towards the end, just so fueled by testosterone. That people around me were like, "How is she? We've been 4 hours into this show. How does she still have all of this energy?" And I'm like yelling at all the fighters. I'm not doing any sort of like backseat driving or anything. I'm just saying I'm shouting Russian words to the Russian speaking fighters, and I'm like there were two Australian fighters, and I just went Aussie, 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 and apparently they hate it. But at the same time, I've been told by Australian people that that's fine as well. So I just tried it anyway. That was my untamed moment.
How close were you to the ring?
Oh, I wish I was closer, but I was in the closest like seating area. Um, so I would say about maybe like two 200 meters from the ring or from the pit they call it.
Did any of the fighters look up from the pit to hear your spoken words in their
No,
mother tongue?
but the um like I kind of became token hype girl for the, I don't know what you call him. I mean, I guess you might call him the ring announcer, but he's not really. There's no rings. I guess the announcer guy. And every time like the fighter comes in, I'm like, woo! And he's like, yeah.
And how many people in the audience was doing the same as you?
I don't know. I was like always the first one. I think if you listen to or if you watch the replay of Karate Combat 45, I think in Dubai, you can like hear me. I haven't watched the full replay yet, so it might actually be, I don't know, towards the end. So the main bout was Luke Rockhold versus Joe Schilling, and spoiler alert, Luke Rockhold won, and I just went mental. I like jumped up from my seat and I was like, yeah. Um, and like I love Luke. Luke is great. He's such a great fighter, and he's so unhinged as well. It's
Well,
just
it looks like
perfect.
Luke might know how much you love him now.
So Alex, so Alex, we're back. What was your untamed moment? in this past week?
So last night I was at a restaurant, soft opening in a Korean restaurant in Kathmandu. And basically, over here, the communication is not a direct form of communication. And people get round providing indirect compliments or feedback, and they say things technically behind people's back. And at this restaurant opening, I was there, my partner's brother-in-law. It's really nice food, really nice place. But as a food critic and a foodie, I can't help but sometimes refraining from saying my honest opinion.
Mm.
And last night there was only one minor thing, and I think my partner's brother-in-law heard it, but they were cooking fried rice on a hot plate,
Yeah.
and they have the rice and they were putting the spinach on, and my instinct kicked in, and I'm like, oh my God, like it's so because he has another Korean outlet
Yeah.
unrelated, and they do kimchi fried rice, and I was like, oh, I prefer the kimchi fried rice at this place. I'm not going to say the name on record on the podcast. And I said it, I thought I said it very quietly to my partner, but his brother-in-law was sat opposite of the table, like looking at me. And while everyone's saying so many good things, it was really nice, so many
Yeah.
things, I was like, crud. I think I offended him. Like, he just because no one says honest opinions, and especially on it when he's hosted and like done something
Yeah.
really nice. And I'm like, oh no, like I'm going to hell here because like he's really took his time to take us out to do all of this stuff, and it might sound nothing, but at the same time, like I should have maybe reserved it and passed it via message or something later on. But I just kind of did it, and thankfully it was only about the rice and not anything else. But yeah, that was my untamed moment. Not as fun as the fire cheering, but just basically commenting on fried rice.
Not as mental as me. Absolutely lovely. I mean, when it comes to fried rice, I mean, you can't, yeah, there's,
I'm not even kidding, Jazz. Like there was no egg to put in the fried rice. The rice was on a hot plate, and it was nice, but he does a really, really tasty fried rice of his other business. It's amazing. Like I shrimp, kimchi, like chicken, pork, like everything. And I had that. I think when you have something in mind and you get a different food, you
mm,
automatically compare it as a reference point, you know? But
expectations. Yeah.
and I thought I was being very subtle and very quiet, whispering. And I was like, oh no. And I'm the kind of person with a guilty conscience. And it I think he was just tired at the end of the day from so many things, and I'm like, have I offended him? Blah, 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 blah. So all the rest of the night, I'm like starting to like go overboard and go over the top, like with
Yeah, yeah.
compliments, like do all of this to make up something
Nice
about the
soup.
fried, fried rice. And I think I'd overdid it. And then I start overthinking things so much. And I'm like, oh my God, I need the night to end now.
Oh dear.
And when reality is, it was probably very nothing, but you
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
help at the same time, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm the same. If I say something or do something that then gets a negative reaction, I'm like, I think I'm 2, 3 hours of like, oh, I'm so sorry. Oh God, I had like over positive.
And then at the same time, I thanked him this morning for the restaurant and like everything. My partner provided feedback because he's a restaurateur and stuff. And like, I was thinking, do I mention the rice? Do I mention it? Did he hear it or not? If he didn't hear it, it might make it worse, you know? Or like, just do I say anything? Or do I say anything to reinforce, you know, to make it look like I'm being honest? Or like,
Yeah,
what do I do? So I don't want to put because at the end of the day, it's not my industry, and there's been a lot of hard work and everything gone into it. And for the sake of fried rice, is it really worth it?
I have you heard of Uncle Roger?
No. Is he a foodie?
No, so he's a comedian. It's a character of a Malaysian comedian who basically critiques fried rice.
Or maybe I've seen this guy.
He's got a bright orange top.
Yeah.
And I think the first victim was like a BBC food host, and then there was like Jamie Oliver and Gordon Ramsay as well, and this like it became his thing to critique people's fried rice. So so it is a serious thing.
Oh, I could definitely invite him over to Kathmandu. That would actually, there's some serious places that need critiquing.
Oh, that would be perfect. Oh. Speaking of not our industry, what is our industry, Alex, and what will we be talking about today?
Content!
Woo! So we are both we both met in a content related role. I've since, as people listening may have noticed from what I said in my introduction, I've moved on to general marketing. But we today in our pilot episode, I think we want to kind of get into the state of content writing, don't we?
The state, yes, exactly what the state is in 2024, like discussing it, what it is, what we think it is, the past, present, and generally about content writing in a nutshell.
And content writing in a nutshell, we shall talk about. I love my transitions. It's so good. So you're fresher on this than I am. What would you how would you define what content writing is?
Oh, content writing is so diverse in it. I think this is a very subjective definition. Basically, I feel it's creating text to inform, to educate, also to persuade, planning, planning text, writing it, refining it for different things like articles, books, um, social media posts, emails, advertisements. Uh, what else have I not covered? Because it could go in a basic sense. Content can, for me, content writing is this. There's also copywriting, which is a different parallel, but I see the role of copywriting also advertised as a content writer role.
Mm.
So for me, I generally think content writing is producing text-based information based on a certain objective for different mediums. And yeah, what about you? How would you describe content writing?
I mean, almost exactly as you said. I have unfortunately been part of the problem of mixing up copywriting and content writing. Um, we can get into that in a little bit, but essentially, content writing is writing, yeah, text-based stuff for content. So things that are going to be consumed by other people, by an audience. This is obviously not content writing because we're in video form, but it could be social media, it could be blog articles, well, it could be blogs and articles. They're two different things. It could be ebooks, it could be regular books, it could be anything that people will read and engage with. I reckon that we maybe like a similar aspect of both copywriting and content writing is that we want people to take a sort of action, and it's at the end of the day, they're both text based as well. I'm gonna ramble, so I need to stop myself. Yeah, so it's just stuff in a nutshell, text that is churned into something to be consumed by an audience. Does that make sense?
Oh, that makes perfect sense to me. And I think it must make sense to people now because content is something that's discussed like all of the time, regardless of
All
the
the time.
industry you're in, whether it's content writing, whether it's images, whether it's producing things. And like pretty much content is the go-to buzzword for many professionals now. And I don't know about you, but this is like, it's so crazy to think like now it's so normal because when I was young, I didn't even know anything about this. Like even in school, like it was not a thing for me. Like
Mm.
it was not a profession, not a like I wouldn't have never perceived I would have went into a career where I pursued content writing. I I mean, I think when I was young, you get taught to make a blog or you get taught to make random stuff, but it's not, I couldn't think it was a career and it was definitely not something I thought I would end up doing.
I think we're both kind of on the same boat. But since you brought up your past, why don't you introduce your background a little bit, Alex? So the
So
people, the wonderful people will know where we're coming from.
so formal, right? It sounds like a bloody interview. So, Jasmine, the reason why I'm applying for this role, no, it's because like, oh crap, I just said something I shouldn't have. Anyways, so the reason why I'm applying for this role is basically my background is, like I said, I never perceived or wanted to be well, I did want to be a writer when I was young. I wanted to get into music journalism. My parents didn't let me, so I wanted to
Oh,
pursue more of an academic route. And basically, I originally wanted to become a psychiatrist and especially help people with addiction. However, I came to Kathmandu, which is really, really random. So I was working in the NHS for 6 years as a medical receptionist. Long story short, I took a sabbatical and came to Trek Everest Base Camp, fell in love with Nepal as a country, and basically decided to start a travel blog, as everyone did back then. Like, as a writer, this sounds so cliche, but like I was a travel blogger, wanted to travel the world, work with hotels, which I did, get free stays, get food, board, and publish and live this life as a young person. But you realize that it's not sustainable at a later point in some ways unless it's monetized. But I had a travel blog. It was called extractsofalex.com, and I learned content writing through having my own travel blog. So it was on WordPress. I was posting on Medium, working with other bloggers, and learned a lot about SEO at the time and started upskilling myself on social media. And then I got a job into a travel company. Uh, that travel company was called Ethical Travel Portal. Now it's Resonate Travel. A friend of mine, Raj Gawali, in Kathmandu, gave me my first content writing gig. I'm very grateful to this guy. And it was all about travel and responsible tourism. So I was writing content and refining content for this sustainable travel company in Norway and Nepal, and that run global trips. So that gave me a real thirst for writing for someone other than myself. And that was really fun because I got to research, I got to gain feedback and start to optimize things. And bear in mind, when I was working back then, I was working on $5 an hour, like literally $5 an hour. Like
oh my God.
I didn't even care. I just wanted to, I had savings, luckily, because I had taken a sabbatical, and I just wanted to write and just want to try and get in and know the situation and do it for fun. Because when you're young and if you're, I mean, I think age is also on my side. I know I'm young right now, but like back when I was very in my early 20s, and I started writing and I really started earning and saving. And then what happened was COVID hit, which I know we'll discuss later on in detail, but more like once COVID hit, no one was traveling, the
Mm.
work was not really coming in, and I was like really stuck. And I'm like thinking what to do, like how do I make more money? How do I live? So luckily, I had a lot of IT friends, and knowing about them being freelancers as developers, I signed up to Upwork. And
Mm.
originally, I didn't get accepted to Upwork because Upwork has a real good vetting system, and I'm so lazy, and I just like to just sprinkle information in, and I got rejected. And
Oh
then
my
after a
gosh.
month or so of trying, filling it in properly, doing the due diligence, I got on, and I got my first gig in. I worked for a website called castletourist.com, where I was writing content about castles, and a dog website. And then I started building my portfolio and reviews and started learning. And then I got opportunities into copywriting, and I started diversifying my field and gaining more experience. And then started building a career on Upwork, and then in parallel getting referrals on LinkedIn. And then the rest is history. I'm no longer taking the psychiatry route, but I do obviously love it. It's my passion, but I love the freedom, the autonomy, and the learning writing brings. So that's where I am today. So I have so many clients ranging in tech, logistics, healthcare, the pet niche. It's very, very diverse. Like I can't put, I do have a lot of experience in certain sectors, but now I basically am a freelancer with quite a large scope of clients. So yeah,
You got
that's
the
my,
job.
I got the job. Thank you. You damn right you should hire me. Anyways, how did you get into content writing? Yeah, your story I think is slightly similar to mine, but in a different way.
Yeah. So so mine starts off in content. I was originally a freelance photographer, and one of my clients, an independent publication from Australia, suggested that maybe I should double up as both a photographer and a writer. So then people can I just send one person, and then I can get experience in sort of both things. So that's kind of where it started. I was a freelance writer in music and video games to start with, and then I did a bit of travel because don't we all? uh, for various publications. And then I went into full timing in the video game industry as a video games writer, became and that's where I kind of like my job, my career was kind of like that, where I was a content writer, and like 2 months later, I became the co-editor of this. So it was the video games website, but also uh, it was the franchisee in Asia for a really big video game magazine called Edge. And anyone who, anyone who loves video games, anyone who's in the video game industry, you may know this magazine. And from there, I kind of started having a groove, but I hadn't gone into uni yet, and everyone was telling me, "You're mad if you think you're going to survive just doing content, so you go into uni." And this is where our paths are like that. Um, I also once upon a time wanted to become a psychotherapist. While you wanted to become a psychiatrist, I didn't want to go into medicine. So I went and got a Bachelor of Science remotely with the Open University in psychology, and it kind of I kind of did part-time writing work with that video games publication while doing my full-time degree. And from when I graduated, COVID hit, so I couldn't move forwards with the psychology side of things. There's so many aspects we can get into it another day. But essentially, because of COVID, similar to you, I went back into freelancing. I also got into Upwork, but I wasn't lazy. I got approved first go. I went through the process, and I went through the grind. You know, I managed on Upwork. I did both content writing, copywriting, and editing as well. And I've had a load of different clients. I've also done articles for a dog website. I'm not sure if we did the same one, but um, it's been I've done SaaS, I've done pets, I've done like the environment, I've done travel, I've done music, I've done loads of stuff. I've got loads of stuff under my belt. And then as time went on, as you well know, and we'll get into this a bit later, that the money just got less and less. So I started looking for a full-time role, and I ended up working as initially a content writer at an agency, and that is where we met. Eventually, I became editor. Or no, I was content writer, and then I became the head of content, and I brought you on board to my team, and I'm so happy we did, because otherwise we wouldn't be here today.
I know, in FYI, the reason I joined the agency was because of Jasmine alone. I'm genuinely serious. And I didn't think I would get picked. Like, that's the craziest thing. And I'm sorry to steal your thunder here because I'm just, but yeah, I was so damn excited because I finally found someone who I could connect to and relate to. And especially after having so many, you can have so many shady online jobs and so many like people you have either corporate or different levels of style. It was such a fresh uh, place to be in, mainly because of you and because of how you manage people, your knowledge, and also it felt like going into work without going into work. It's crazy. I've never had that experience on an online platform or remote work. And yeah, I'm happy we met. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I think we should let people know that we've still not yet met in person, have we? We've only had conversations online.
I know this is the stalker mode, like well, instead of something like chat roulette, we met through work, and like the rest is
Yeah, at
history.
least it's that, eh? Yeah.
I trust you're not a psycho in real life, don't worry.
I am.
I'm going off my gut instinct here that when I come to Dubai or you come to Kathmandu, that's not going to be, my passport's not going to get taken away from me and then get trafficked or anything like that. I shouldn't say it's a very serious topic. I'm sorry. Uh, something like, yeah. Anyways, it's my gut instinct here. You're a decent human being.
And you're a lovely human being, like, honestly. Such a laugh. And I guess like that's one of the reasons why we love what we do, don't we? You get to do so many different things. You get to meet so many different people.
You know what? Like, I'm genuinely serious here. Like, obviously, same with you. You've traveled quite a lot. You've lived in quite a few locations, and no disrespect to any of my friends in life. Like, I have got some amazing friends. But at the same time, the people that I've met through the world of content writing, copywriting, marketing, it's just insane. Like, I meet so many amazing people that I've still never met, and I hope to meet some days. I have met clients as well in person. And it's like most of my clients, like a lot of them become friends or like, very valuable relationships that I wouldn't have got just doing it in office job or
Mm,
like in-person job. And I love it. I look like quite a loner because I have to control my life nowadays with seeing people due to work because of the
yeah.
balance and things. But if only I said this to my friend a couple of months ago. I said, like, if only I could meet the people from LinkedIn or through work on a day to day, I'd be so content, like in person for coffee and just hanging out all the time.
Yeah.
But
I think it's difficult when you're in different places around the world. But LinkedIn is great for that. We can get into that topic another day, actually.
yeah, another day, another time. But I mean, in the sense of like, you do meet some pretty amazing people through this industry,
Yeah, absolutely. So
ourselves
we
included.
yes. So we both started our work before COVID. What what do you reckon was yeah. So like, what was life as a content writer before COVID like?
Okay, so I'll like chip into this, and I know there might be people like listening who are quite experienced in this industry. And like I'm not as experienced as the people that started when, blogging was going like wildfire in the early 2000s and when Upwork was like Odesk and things like that. I can
Mm,
just explain when I was there. So when I was content writing back in the day, I'll be honest, it was pretty chill. Like I got a lot of opportunities like very easy. Like I think because like I had experience, but at the same time, the market wasn't competitive. I could get so many things, but not even just content writing. It was like silly things, like same with you, like transcribing or
yeah.
uh, editing or proofreading, and I've done so many like random things. Just back then, I was applying for anything. Like I was still working, I was getting jobs, but I remember writing someone's what's it called for university? Not a refer, is it?
Me too.
I've helped with someone's university referral. Is it a referral letter? I cannot remember.
Yeah, I
When
think
they
it,
send
there's
it
a
off,
yeah, there's a referral letter, but I
it's like
also
not
helped
a
with someone's
referral, like
assignment.
yeah, yeah, assignment also. I've done the assignment and I've helped with someone's dissertation. Like I've not written it. I know someone, a friend that's done it and proofread, but
Oh my
yeah, I've
God.
done so many random things back then. It was quite fun. It was very like I think it was a kind of fake it till you make it kind of thing.
Yeah.
But people would blindly trust you back then because
Mm.
there was not a lot of people doing. There was a lot of people, but I mean, it was quite fun. I mean, I have worked on some fun but crazy projects. Like, what about you? How did you find it back then? Because um, I was just, like I said, I was working in a travel company um, in pre-COVID. And basically, like, apart from travel, like, I was doing so many random things, but the travel was really fun. It was like constant learning. I was constantly doing things, looking things, and I kind of had this, I hadn't even thought about AI back then. That was
Oh
what's
God.
crazy. Like,
Yeah.
I just did it for the sake of doing it, and it was so. I think when I first started into it, also it was like such a novelty. I mean, it still is, but going into a coffee shop, having a coffee, doing this, connecting to people, and I don't know. I think because I went from a public-facing job in terms of being a medical receptionist and all of this kind of stuff to doing something that had so much freedom, it was like I felt like I had a new lease of life and I felt like such a sense of value as a person and it was pretty cool and I felt like very proud to be a content writer. Like it was a sense of pride. I'm not gonna lie because not there were people that were doing it, but the people that were doing it were tended to be in like that I knew of was not a lot of remote workers that I knew at the time that were doing remote content writing. I know a lot of people that had, but they transitioned into other roles like a developer or marketeer and stuff. But now, like back then, it was quite fun and stress free in a different way. What about you?
Well, I went from freelancing with the that indie publication. So I went to because I doubled up as a photographer as well. I was at music events in Singapore, in Malaysia, in Australia. Um, I even went to Japan for a video games conference at like that. It's it's all these little experiences that happened back then. I'm sure they exist now, but when I was freelancing, there was definitely a lot more. Yeah, there was a lot more freedom. I guess they both have free in their names, so there's something about that. And but I went to I guess you could say that I did do journalism because I went into the video games industry as a journalist. Really, I was reviewing video games, I was interviewing people, I was making opinion pieces that no one really wanted to hear. Um, and I got to go again. I went to events here and there. It was paid for by the company, which was great. Didn't have to pay out of pocket, but it it was for me, the experience was interesting because I've kind of had both ends in terms of content writing. I've been in the office as a content writer, and
Mm.
I've been a freelancer before COVID as well. So there was you would never think that there would be office politics in terms of of content, but they exist. They absolutely exist.
How many was in the content team at the time?
So in the video game publication, there were, including me, there were maybe four or five.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
I feel like, I mean, in hindsight, I genuinely, when I quit that job, it was starting to become quite toxic. But what I feel like in hindsight, there were bits of me back then that don't show through now, especially in terms of leadership and like editing and all that stuff. So it was interesting for sure, having that experience. And then I I don't think I've had a broad scope of clients as you did before COVID. I got that during COVID.
Actually, no, that yeah, I got it more in COVID. That's true. Sorry, I was getting confused. It's all blurred into one.
Oh God, yeah.
Um, but when did you see? Because you also mentioned you got into like travel and stuff. So for me, like when I was like working in travel before COVID, and I had like my travel blog, I was also like posting articles on Medium and
Mm.
like actively doing a lot of like just random thought-provoking posts as well. Like, were you doing anything on the side of what you were doing like before COVID?
Oh yeah, I've got a Medium with like loads of random stuff, loads of random stuff. I haven't looked at it in a while. I did use it as sort of my portfolio going into freelancing again. And I bet if I look at it now, I'm just gonna face palm and hide my face in shame. Like, what were you thinking? How could you write things like that? I have that's probably
You know what? I actually feel the same way as you because, like, for anyone as a writer, like FYI, or looking to get content writing, you have to just start and then refine it over time.
yeah.
But I'm the same with you with Medium and also my blog. I just started writing. Like it's the same. And I mean, I'm not a SEO whiz kid, but I do have an insight into it. And back then, the thing is with Kathmandu and Nepal is like you can easily rank for topics. And
Yeah.
when I started writing my travel blog, like you see so many amazing ones. But back then, I think I was just writing about either on my experiences, and it became more of a diary instead of like there was some that was more like informative and helpful to people, the readers. And I'm thinking like, oh my God, like the stuff that ranks so easily and it could come out like about my experience about being in a massage. Like, and it's so like, it's like really cringy stuff, you
Yeah.
know, and you look back and I'm like, thank God I've taken that blog down now. Thank God. Like so many people wanted me to keep it going, but I had like 200 articles and it's just like you look back and I mean that's the process of becoming a better writer, I guess. Same with your meeting, like you look back and you refine it and refine it, refine it. But
Yeah.
back back then you don't think any different, and then like 5 years down the line you're like, oh my God, what have I written? Like it's so embarrassing, you know.
Yeah. Oh
I,
God. Now I'm like cringing internally thinking about some of the stuff that I've written. Oh dear.
I think I'll
Uh
check out your Medium after this
yeah.
episode.
I'll I'll share it with you. You share yours with me as well. We can cringe at each other. So oh God, I don't know how we would transition to any like statistics because like so I've the one that the ones that I've found, it was that like I mean the state of it beforehand, there were what 41% of marketing budgets were solely spent on content and but that would include videos and photos and stuff as well, I reckon. But like just in terms of our experience, I I feel like back then, again, as you said, there weren't that many people who were in our positions, and we didn't really meet so many content writers like in the coffee shops. Like, what are you doing? Oh, like there's a dev guy, there's a photographer, there's like no one really into content writing, I reckon.
2019 was that? When did COVID hit? Was it 2020?
2020, yeah.
It feels so long.
Sorry
Yeah.
that we have to remind everyone.
The curse COVID. So yeah, like I mean, my experience back then, even in 2019, the content, like people, I think people knew where to look for content writers if they wanted one, but not many people still, the role, I don't know, in my opinion, the role wasn't there. They knew about it briefly, but they didn't, it wasn't as common as it is now. Like, let's
Mm,
put it that way. Like, everyone writes nowadays, but like back then, like it was there. I mean, it wasn't. I mean, people who are listening from like the 2000s will probably be thinking, "Oh my God, it was nothing. It's like so much compared to like what was in 2003, you know?" But like for my own opinion, like not many people pursued content as much. It was still not as it was today. Not, I mean, even not just writing like reels in terms of
mm.
like TikTok, like it's now on steroids, but it was not there, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think we know what to blame for that rise in content because I think that during COVID, everyone just became more online. I mean, the internet existed before, but it just yeah, you're right. It is on steroids now, especially.
I mean, like, the thing is, I really want to talk about COVID because if we can jump to that,
Let's talk
because
about COVID.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry if people are so traumatized, but I'm going to be selfish here, just to big up this industry. COVID was one of the best worst things that could have happened to me. Like that's the reality. Like I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna just point it out, and I'm gonna sound so rude and self-centered, but I'm sorry for people that have lost their life, families and relatives with COVID because it is serious, and I know it was very, very tragic in that sense. But work-wise for me, because I was already working in remote work, those 2 years was like a jackpot. I'm not gonna lie, like I benefited from COVID in a different way because so many people went and their businesses were no longer operating, they were struggling. But for me, my work grew so much because many people I seen were transitioning into the digital landscape, and many people were focusing on the digital effort and the digital side that I was in so much demand. I spent most of the pandemic working like a nutcase
Mm,
because there was so much opportunity to tap into and so much because I was already existing in this industry and I wasn't like trying to start to enter this industry. I think it really benefited me as a content writer. And that's when I started to diversify I and because obviously you're restricted to working from home, I had no meets with people, no this, and
mm.
I was working like 12-hour days, whatever, but just because of the benefits from COVID. And I think that's when I started to really make my mark as a writer. But
Yeah.
at the same time, like I'm sorry if I sound so selfish, but it really, really helped me.
I mean, I think I think I could be a bit selfish as well and say that it definitely helped, well, at least solidify my experience and solidify like my skill set, I suppose. Because so during COVID, I was doing, well, I mean, I graduated just at the beginning, well, kind of beginning of COVID, and I was still fresh on that. You you'll understand quite a lot. Psycho the psychology like assignments. Like I was still fresh off of that mindset. You know, you have to make sure that everything is structured and you need to explain,
Referenced.
yeah, and referenced, and you need to explain things as if not that you're talking to a professor or a tutor, but you're talking to someone who doesn't know anything about the concepts that we're talking about. So I feel like that whole experience sort of seamlessly blended together, where I started making a sort of, I guess you can call it like a writing style. Like I was technical, but also not like stuffy. I had the technical skills from uni in terms of writing, but I still had that friendly, like sort of forward facing stuff. And then I started to adjust my tone of voice a bit more with the more jobs that I got. Like people are doing professional stuff, like they want a bit more serious, and then you've got you've got people writing about dogs. You kind of want to be a bit more
Still do.
yeah.
So carry on. People writing about dogs.
Yeah, I'm definitely not anymore. Would be nice to so just a yeah, the I think we were in a fortunate position because we had that experience before. But then during and throughout, and then now going into the, well, not going into anymore. We're 2 years past the end of it, but there's just more and more and more people who um, discovered freelancing, who discovered that one of the ways to freelance once it was to be a copywriter or content writer. So more and more people put their services online, and that kind of muddied the market from my experience. And it just became, as COVID went on, it became more and more difficult to kind of make a living without spending 24 hours working.
Yeah, it was I mean COVID, that's one fair point. I think like so many people came on and at the same time you had to be a slave to the gig economy at the same time and try
Mm,
and get different jobs. I remember like literally then I think it was good for a certain point and then when more people came on, I don't know how you were surviving, but I was non-stop around the clock. Like I was covering all the different time zones of when jobs might be released. So like I'd be like, okay, like uh say 12 p.m. is a good example of like 8 a.m., 9 a.m. European time being
mm,
the jobs will be released on a Monday or UK time, then the States I'll be online at 10 p.m. So I was constantly like checking the job feed back then, mainly on Upwork and Freelancer.
mm.
And I was like constantly glued. And like, I mean, looking back, it's not healthy, but I was just trying to like just do it for even random low-key jobs just to earn money and find the chase. I was getting them, but it was not great, if you kind of get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we definitely should talk about is the work-life balance, and it was just horrible back then. I mean, it was like I feel like before was okay, it was more manageable, but then during was a bit mad, wasn't it?
Oh, my work-life balance went to pot. Like the thing is,
Non-existent.
I was lucky to like spend the pandemic in a different like in two countries. I don't know where you were, but I was in. Kathmandu and in Newcastle in the UK. And I remember when I had my apartment in Newcastle, it got so bad. I didn't do any workouts, I didn't do any fitness. I literally, like, I was in a studio apartment. I'd get out of my bed. Maybe if I was lucky, I'd read, have my coffee, and then just go straight to my desk, be working, get takeaways every other day, this, then go back to bed, this, and I'd be doing not even maybe 2,000 steps in a day, and I'd gained so much weight, like as pure, I was so lazy, and just for the sake of content, like I don't advocate this to anyone, but
No,
I
absolutely not.
had no balance.
Yeah, during COVID, I was stuck in Georgia, the country, not the US state, because that still gets confused to this day. And uh, I mean, I was lucky that I wasn't in a studio apartment. I at least had, I think we had a 3 bedroom. Um, it was a massive apartment, so I could just walk up and down. But it was cheap. So I walked up and down. I mean, I still gained weight because that's all you could do. You could just walk up and down the apartment. You didn't do much anything else. Uh, I was working all morning. There were other bits of content that I went into, not just writing during COVID as well. I was doing videos. I was doing streaming. I was like, I was waking up at stupid o'clock in the morning to get the American audience for streaming, and then
Oh,
I'll have my coffee and then go into content writing. Uh, it it was not, yeah, work-life balance was non-existent.
sounded like you were covering all the continents as well.
Yeah, yeah, you can say that. That's for sure.
But
So,
back then, like when this was happening, like I would have loved to have known you because like I think this happened to pretty much many content writers at the time, and I had no one to validate my thoughts, and it's
no,
so toxic, but you just do whatever you can because you want to earn money and you want to hustle and
yeah, oh God,
thrive. And I thought I was like I don't know, looking back, I was like cr it's really unhealthy. It was really unhealthy.
yeah.
Uh,
It was really a grind. It was
and
just mad.
I remember like looking at like literally like I had my phone, I had my laptop, I was like refreshing things all of the time, doing things, and instead of taking like time, would it in theory, it could have been better to like take a day off or take time out to
Mm,
be mindful and do so many like non-device activities or growth things, but I felt like how people maybe feel in Wall Street and like the bull ring, like just constantly like waiting for new opportunities, waiting for this
yeah,
because you just don't know the state of the world and what's going to happen. And the more money, the better, like the better to sit on and live on at the time.
yeah. And then I mean, as the pandemic went on, I don't know if you noticed as well, just the rates, the pay rates just started decreasing. But they wanted good quality work, but they didn't want to pay for it. Was that your experience as well?
I think like it's a mixture of things. I think they did want good quality work and they didn't want to pay for it. So many freelancers of different countries and things of different pay rates, and obviously becomes more attractive to people um, because of the affordability aspect. But they wanted you, yes, to match those rates. And then I think like sometimes I think the biggest problem for me with COVID was like a lot of clients would go MIA and ghost me
Mm,
because of their own businesses, or like they'd be off the grid, or like in advocate. I mean, this was when the realities of being a freelancer really hit me in COVID as well, because there'd be a project you would love working on or something, and you get it in your mind like you think that client is going to be with you for the foreseeable. Like you
yeah,
get this attachment, and this stability in your mind, and then like all of a sudden they're gone, and you're
Oh
messaging
God.
them on different channels and stuff, and you start to like you feel like you're struggling to keep afloat. Like that's when
Yeah.
stability started to really like, how do I manage this freelancer life? That's when it really started to hit me. So like more than the clients wanted to drop the money, it was more like the clients were going MIA.
Yeah. Oh God, that reminded me of, so there was someone that I was supposed to write his sushi book for, and like I was so excited. I absolutely adore sushi and I adore Japanese food. I adore Japanese culture. Um, but and I was really looking forward to this because he chose me. We went through.
It's not Giro, is it? No.
No, I don't think so.
I was gonna be like, oh my God, such a cool the guy, he has a Michelin star.
Yeah,
Okay, never mind. Anyways,
no, it was like a just like a small fry like us, but he had like all these ideas that he wanted to put into basically like a recipe book, and I was going to make it for him.
wow.
Uh, and I had started off the project already, and then he just became increasingly quiet, and then it just died. The project just died. I spent the time on it. I didn't get paid
Oh
for the
no.
time that I had spent on it, and then there was no moving forward. So it was gut wrenching. But uh, if if he ends up watching this, like I hope you got your sushi book in the end, and I hope that I could get a free copy.
And I hope you pay Jasmine for that work.
It's fine. It's fine. Water under the bridge. But I think an interesting stat to just share with everyone is that, like, just about competition. And the reason why I complain about the rates going down was because there are more, again, like more and more people going into freelancing and more people becoming content writers. And I think that muddied the market quite a bit. And there was just more and more people for, just the two of us to compete with. And just as a statistic, that apparently, according to Content Writer, that there are approximately 123 million freelance copywriters and content writers around the world, and we're just
To
two of them.
today,
Yeah,
2023. What?
mad, isn't it?
That's documented. Like, there's so many. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, and it was. I mean, I'm pretty sure it was a lot less. I couldn't find any numbers of before, but that's the numbers now.
Oh my God, that makes me sick thinking about it. Like, it's actually giving me a big reality check right now, hearing that figure.
I'm sorry.
It's okay, I'm fine. But like, that's crazy.
Yeah,
Um, that's really, really crazy. And I'm just happy we were already in the industry and we'd already had a diverse range, like built a portfolio of different types of content and upskilled ourselves, because I
mm,
feel like if I didn't have that head start and starting in today's day and age, I would have felt like, oh my God. And I kind of feel lucky. I feel very lucky in that situation. Um, yeah, and I think another the problem is like I remember, which I'll come to also in a later part, but like when more people came in, a lot of people would come to me, like existing clients or like prospective clients, and say like, hey, I'm getting charged this amount of work, can you, for this project, can you match this rate or something? And I'm like, just because this rate is this from this person doesn't mean it's going to correlate to this type of work,
yeah,
and people just started seeing the affordability side, because also, I mean, I'm not going to discredit any of the content writers that were giving more affordable rates, but I remember like when I started more into COVID, I was really like coming from that $5 job, going into copywriting, content writing, I was really, sometimes I was taking free gigs just to build up my
Mm.
portfolio. And I mean, that's like in essence how people should start into the world of this content writing, is take something very low and build up your portfolio and ratings and then start setting your charges and stuff. But because so many people were going into this industry, they were probably presenting some pretty enticing offers to people.
Yeah, that's probably true as well, because I guess the both of us who started before had a portfolio of stuff already, and we both had Medium blogs, and we both had worked with, various other companies, and we had a portfolio before. But I feel like there was a point where it didn't matter how good your portfolio was. All that mattered was the price. And it's sad to hear, actually, that like your current clients would go away and then come back and say, hey, there's someone who's actually like charged us, who's going to charge us lower. uh, it's like the undercutting is mad, and that is a client that knows your work as
And
well.
then one time I was in a situation where I was writing posts for a client, and I'm quite savvy. Like I check when I get paid and everything. And I remember like after 4 posts in for this big website, suddenly when I got paid, I got paid less. Not thinking I'd noticed because they were adjusting the word count. They
Oh
didn't
God.
discuss, and I like did the division, worked out the cost per word, and he was like cutting me short by like 3 cents per word, like minus per word, because obviously I was doing things in dollars back then. And I was like, how dare you like shortchange me without even saying, and just thinking I'm blindly not noticed because I'm doing long form pillar posts, like 4,000, 5,000 word blog articles, and I was
Yeah.
getting shortchanged. And that was another thing that was I was getting really annoyed at as well. So it was quite a struggle then in a different way.
Is it still, I mean, we're talking about post COVID, is it still the same now? Because I'm not in that space. I haven't been in the freelance space for 2 years now. Is that still the same situation now?
Like in what sense? Like competing.
Yeah, competing and undercutting and like all that stuff.
No, it's not. Well, personally, I don't feel like it. I mean, post-COVID, I think the competition is there. Obviously, because like you said, there's 123 million
Million, yeah.
writers. The competition is there, but I think you know how to position yourself now. Um, I don't get undercut. Like I dictate my prices because I it translates to the quality of my work, and I think I've got the experience and portfolio behind me to give that power. I don't
Mm,
bend in that situation. I think also that was like the case of learning like all the trial and error of being a freelancer, of how you position yourself, how you manage clients, how you don't get shortchanged, you know. Um, Now I think okay, if we're going to talk about post COVID and now, then like we have to mention AI
yeah.
because I can't just translate to where I am now. Um, with
Go off then. Let's go.
ha ha ha. So, like, in order to answer that question of yours, I have to talk about AI. It's essential. I mean,
Mm,
post COVID, we personally, I generally thought like at some point, our my job is going to be automated at some point in time. So I was having like these ideas in the back of my mind, like at some point I'm gonna have to transition. This freelancer life is not sustainable at all. Like I'm gonna have to open a business, open up an agency, or diversify my career, or just do something. And I was like, oh yeah, like let's do this. Income like November, December 2022, and like that's when ChatGPT really came to life, but it didn't really hit me till January last year.
mm.
And I like lost my confidence completely as a writer at that time because um I lost so many clients. Like I'm not like I had long-term clients from 2 to 3 years, 4 years, and I lost them to AI because everyone was using AI. Like
Mm.
it was just a normal thing. And I think this is like when a lot of even more, which bumped the figure up to 123 million, and more writers came in to become a content writer because of AI.
Yeah.
And I found myself like not even just getting short change for work in terms of like working at a lower rate, wanting cheaper rates. I lost so many clients. Like I was heartbroken. Like I was putting on a brave face to everyone else. Thought it was amazing, but I spent a lot of the first half of 2023 last year. I was not just lazing around. Like I'm not like I was like I felt defeated. Like I felt like I'll I'm gonna be honest, I felt like I felt lost. I felt like my identity was missing. I felt like because the confidence was stripped away from me so much and of losing so many people. And then again, AI was used for everything. Like I'm not even talking about producing content. It was like sending proposals for prospective clients, outreach. Like I didn't even know where to start. And I think I was so phased in my head was so stuck in what had happened instead of learning to live with it. I just spent the first half of the year just living off my savings, like just enjoying life, stuck in my, basically not adapting. And
Yeah.
then, I mean, I think that might have happened to so many people in a different way. Like it might have, well, I'm sure it did with freelancers. I mean, I know you were lucky to have like a role in a company but I struggled. I'm not gonna lie, I really struggled to find work. I struggled to position myself. And then I think it wasn't till like the middle of last year that I thought like, oh hey, like let's just get learning about AI and let's just like use it as an aid. Let's try, like, and then the more I was learning, the more I realized like AI is not what it seems to be.
Mm.
Like at the end of the day, it's not going to replace the emotional element. And I started positioning and thinking about my work in a different way. And by that time, I think the world was realizing the same with AI, that it's churning out a lot of similar stuff, a lot of the similar structure. And a lot of my old clients started coming back to me. And like I started gaining new clients and like during AI, like, I mean, it's like the trend of COVID and like, it's like, I don't know the phrase for this. I'm sure you can correct me. But when like there's a new trend or something and everyone like just adopts to it and like it
Yeah.
spreads like wildfire, then it kind of dies down and people just live with it.
Yeah.
So that's what happened with AI for me. And then like come September last year, like I was starting to get more and more and more clients pre AI, pre COVID, because I think I'd learned how to utilize it and also position. I think that's when it really taught me to know my positioning even more, because the rise of AI and the rise of writers made me know how much I need to fight for my role and like position myself. And that's like how it did. So now that when I have clients who get, I know like exactly how to position myself, exactly what to charge, exactly like what are my morals, what are my boundaries, which I didn't have before. I didn't have boundaries.
Mm.
So yeah,
I think jumping on the bandwagon, right? That would be the phrase.
yeah, I think jumping on I was looking for like more scientific phrase, like some bias, some this. I was waiting, come on, like fellow psychologists, like to come out with some sort of there is something, and I'll
But
have to Google it later.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'm currently reading The Art of Thinking Clearly, and that's got like I think 99 different biases that he talks about. I
Okay.
think there is one as well. I just can't think of it off the top of my head. But like on the topic of AI in the fast-paced digital landscape, ever changing. Oh God, yeah. Yeah, you're correct in where like I wasn't so badly affected by the onslaught of AI. Um, I was in an agency, and there were a few clients who were like, "Oh, so you like ChatGPT, have you what what do you think about it?" And I'm like, well, I knew quite quickly because I had tried for it myself to just see its capabilities. I wasn't shy to try it, but at the same time, I wasn't worried because robots are robots, and as much as people want to say that we can talk about this a completely other like time, that there are people who like emotionally attach themselves to AI, but at the end of the day, there's no replacing the human connection. There's no replacing the human touch, and that is what I said, and that's what I've been saying throughout. Um, when so it was also around that time where I had to. I think last year I had to hire twice into my team, and I could already see there were hundreds of people who were applying, and then showing me because one of the like parts of the application form was like share with me three of your best, like what you believe is your best articles, and people were just sharing me stuff that they made with ChatGPT, and
Wow.
that just drove me bonkers. I was like, oh, you're straight out. You think that I don't know that if the very start of your article starts with in the fast-paced, ever-changing, blah 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 world or landscape, like you're joking. It's like I saw the pattern there, and I was just saying that I will use it as a tool. I will use it to help with productivity, to come up with um, like structures and just helping with brainstorming ideas or whatever. But to use it just full up and then pass it off as your own, you're absolutely mad. And no wonder that you went through what you went through. But I'm glad, and I was about to call them out, I'm glad that your clients came back. I, I mean, it's like the models are getting a bit better now. There is a a way that you can fine tune it to make it sound like you, but it takes a lot of work. And I don't think a lot of people, I do not think a lot of people want to put in that work. They just want to do it the quick that they can. They want to get their money and they want to go to the next job.
Yeah, and I mean, it's definitely good to get it for helping with planning and researching
Mm,
and outlining. I'm not gonna lie, but to refine it, to get it to done to a certain way, I just think it's too much time and too much effort.
yeah.
And again, like it's not there. But I'm not gonna lie, I did see on LinkedIn this morning before this episode was recorded, like, oh, create content that has AI, like someone released this thing, like say this AI model helps really write emotional content that connects, learn how like write emotional content that connects instead of like other AI. And I was like, I'm gonna comment. I thought, no, this is gonna give it too much attention. Like I don't want to do. Like I had that fear, but at the end of the day, I was thinking like still not gonna happen because there's so many different personas, so many different
Mm,
audiences. You cannot write this because, and even like, it's just, for me, it's just not feasible. At least I don't think.
no, no. And I'm glad that more and more people are realizing it. And it's so one of the I guess one of the interesting points that we should bring in. I'm not sure if you're aware, but so because so many people were using AI to write their content, um, that it just the internet was just flooded with AI content, and then because writing content, we need to worry about SEO. Google has had to come out and say like different things. So first Google was like, no, don't use it. And then realized that it was too big to stop and the algorithm wasn't smart enough to like know about the AI content, or at least like realize what is AI content. So they've gone and said, all right, like you can use it, but don't use it to spam. Don't use it as like to create spammy content. Um, I don't remember when they said that last thing, but it took them until March this year before they actually managed to fine tune the algorithm. And all the websites that relied on AI content lost all their traffic. And it's, I mean, you can look it up. There's an article by, I think, Search Engine Journal, and it might be SEMrush as well, that just had, there was someone who was paid, like, who did a random website, or just like a list of websites, and you can just see the graph, like you're like that, and it just goes down like that, like a roller coaster, straight down and into zero. So things are getting serious now, and people are waking up to the just the knowledge that, you know, we, as you said at the beginning of this episode, the content that we write is to educate, right? First and foremost, it's to entertain. And if everything just sounds the same, and if everything is saying the same thing, then it's not really educational and it's not really entertaining, is it?
Unlocked, unparalleled in today's times. Like, it's not educational. It's not valid, and I just think it's so monotonous.
Mm,
The work AI produces, it's not. I don't know. I just don't see it, and I don't know. I think it's a good thing, but it's not going to replace writers, and I might be a bit biased here, but I also, I guess I should bring up the topic of like working with clients nowadays, because it's a go-to question by many people. Do you use AI or not?
mm.
Because some,
That
I'm,
was one of my interview
I
questions to
remember
you.
you asking me, I'm like, wow. So like I always provide a sitting on the fence answer, because I've also seen writers so dependent on AI, and it's so obvious, but at the same time, I think it should be a necessary tool for writers to use. I know there's people that are so anti-AI
Mm,
and they want to produce from scratch, and we know people who are writers and who don't use AI at all. But at the same time, like I genuinely like to write things on my own, but in terms of outline, or in terms of like, for example. I always use a thesaurus, but if sometimes I'll put something in AI, and if it comes out with a really cool word, I'll use that word. I won't use verbatim what AI is going to spit out at me, but I'll help it for idea generation. And I
mm.
think in terms of time frame, it can help, but in terms of producing anything, no, it's not there.
No. And I think, I mean, I've tested this myself as well. And that is why eventually that became one of my interview questions. Was it takes just about the same amount of time to produce a content with AI as if you just did it from scratch. So because of all the tweaking that you have to do with AI, at the end of the day, you still need to do the research. You still need to make sure you still need to fact check the stuff that gets spit out by AI. And it's just starting it on your own from scratch is a lot more interesting, if I'm honest.
And then I don't know about you, but I find like if you use AI to produce something or research, sometimes it stops your creative block, and like
Mm,
you end up like it takes you longer to tap into that like blank paper and all this and type, because you default to AI structure. And when you're just so used to, it's like, for example, like as writers, people advise you to write every day. And
mm,
if you're constantly using AI, it stops that part of your brain that you're training to get better at, because you're defaulting to this model. And
mm.
I think like if you're writing without AI completely, you're better, you're more creative, you're flow, you're more aware of your writing, you're more confident. And I think people lose their creative side and their capacity to write when they use AI at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's definitely an issue with content nowadays because everyone wants to churn as much content as possible. and there's just no, well, it's also just people want to, I think now especially, and we can talk about LinkedIn in a different episode, but just the amount of people who are the same here, and then you just, yeah, they just, it's so obvious that they just want to make money. And you've got all these like these growth hackers and growth consultants and growth marketers who are saying the same thing in and out. There's not, they don't give any new knowledge. They don't have any interesting insights. It's the same with well, I guess not so much with like content writers, or at least not the ones that I follow, but it's the same with especially social media marketers. Everyone says the same thing. And I'm sorry to call social media marketers out like straight up, but everyone's saying the same thing. Everyone is giving the same news. They're giving the same opinions on said news. Like everyone hates X now since it was bought over by Elon Musk. It's just, but then Threads is still not as good as X, so everyone goes back into Twitter, and it's like it that the creativity seems to have gone in this current time where everyone just seems to want to make as much money from other people as possible. If I may be so bold.
Oh, this really irritates me. Like, I know it's another topic for another time, but y- I think because we're in this industry, we can easily sniff out AI. And I
Yeah.
feel people who are on LinkedIn, who are businessmen or professionals who maybe have not sussed it out, but
Mm,
because maybe we follow and see so many of these things, it really irritates me because these people have no experience whatsoever. They're cutting out this, they're repurposing the same jargon as another AI post, and I cannot stand it. And you know what the worst part is? Either it's their consistency or like the way that I don't know, but they are getting traction, and that
mm,
bothers me so badly. Like, because like it's like I don't know. They obviously have ways to figure out the algorithm. Let's put it that way. But the content is so bad, and it's like we've had discussions about this itself, like about genuine content and what's of value, but it's so bad that it's just like it makes you annoyed, and it just like gives you more frustration in this industry, and you want to badmouth people or you want to come. There's so many times I've seen people and I want to comment directly on the post and like
yes.
oh, what did you use, or like can you maybe you want to take a different suggestion instead of a rocket emoji, like these kind of things like
Yes.
really
Oh
really
God, the
bothers
rocket
me.
emojis.
And and I think like, but at the same time I have to keep silence because it's you want to be a bit more pleasant and
Professional, I
politically
guess.
exactly professional, because I'm tired of this. And like, the problem is I have friends, partners, like sorry, don't have partner, my partner, let's put it that way. I'm sorry. Um, people that I know that are not in this industry, and they won't know, they'll be blinded by this, and they could have someone cold outreach them going, hey, like I have this and this service, digital marketing, or this and this coaching service, growth service, and they'll blindly buy into it
Yeah,
because they don't know the structure and they don't know things. And it really nags me so much because it's, yeah, that's another rant for another time.
absolutely. And just going back into what you just said about people not knowing, uh, we've both come across. I'm going to use plural, but let's be honest, it's not true. Um, People who've gone into, I guess, roles that relate to content, but have absolutely no idea what's going on. And
Mm.
I I think you were working with me already, but there was that one test I did with the company when um, so I had written a piece of content, and then I had gotten AI to write the same piece of content in two different ways. And there were people who thought that the content that I wrote was the one and only that was by AI. And that just drove me mad. Like, there's so many people in the world who still don't realize all the little things that are so obvious to people like us. But I guess at the end of the day, and like we can use this as a transition. But at the end of the day, that's why we've started this. That's why we started our podcast. That's why we started Untamed Ink. You know, like we want to. I don't know how big this is going to get, but or just regardless of how many or how little people watch this, but I hope that we can somehow make these people a bit more aware of the different things that is happening in this digital space, especially.
For sure. And I think it's so important that we educate or support people in the digital space and those who are wanting to upskill themselves or, you know, build their business in the digital space because we're here to basically share the stuff that people are trying to tame and not let out and to try to monetize it off. And we're trying to untame those stupid things people are doing, basically, so people can benefit and survive and have their own criteria to gauge certain services, i.e., content writing, marketing, you know, anything, and benefit instead of being exploited from.
Yeah, and I guess I could use that as like there's just something that there's such a stigma against people like us, right? Content writers, copywriters. But you know, as we've probably said, we're like an hour and 20 minutes in. I think it's an hour and 40 in total. But like, we've gone through just how important content in general is for this entire digital space. Like, the internet runs on content, and yes, they're just like developers, just like designers. There are people who are just starting out. They're not that great. There are people who have been in the space for quite a few years, I suppose, and they're still not that great. But when we're talking about being content writers or copywriters, we're not just talking about being a blogger, are we?
Oh, the blogger. You know what, right? This is, we started something now.
Shots fired, pew pew.
So, like, obviously, our roles have evolved from being a content writer, and obviously, we do different things. We obviously dabble in like this as well, but like, I'm so scared of timing right now. But in terms of content writing, I still today say to people in the day and age, I'm a content writer because it's the easiest way to just tell people what I do instead of going into copywriting,
Hmm.
which we can discuss on another episode. But what I want to say is when someone, especially in Kathmandu, my mum's generation and friends, I don't know if they have this mindset because even they don't really know about content writing as such. But anyone that speaks to me like, oh, Alex, what does Alex do? Or like in a third party, like third person conversation, they'll be like, oh, she's a content writer. And it's like, she writes blogs. Like, that's what I do. Like, I'm just a blogger. And I mean, um, A, that really annoys me because it's not just that, but B, blogging is damn hard in itself because people just think like, it's like, I think because vlogger, even a vlogger, they get put into this nuisance, like they're influencers, they're in everyone's face, it's
Yeah.
very easy, but they don't see all the hard work that goes on behind the scenes. And there's a lot of planning, whether it's technical writing, non-technical, a lot of work involved, a lot of research, like that's not even factoring in SEO, um, creating marketing plans, creating outlines, writing stuff for like down to the micro level of like
Hmm.
emails. You've just done your email campaign, like
Oh
these kind
God.
of things, like even like social media posts, like people think you're just posting and it takes 2 seconds to do. It's very easy because we're taught to write from a young age, but it's
Hmm.
it's really not. It's really, really. not what people think it is. It's not just blogging. Um, it's like the amount of spreadsheets that I have to create on a day-to-day basis and go into detail and look at courses, look at analytics. Like I don't know where to start because this is so long we could talk about this. But
Yeah.
basically, people have a lot of stigma with writers, content writers, and they just think it's the blog, and they just think they're writing like as a hobby, like about what
Mm.
they did at the weekend or like travel or something very airy fairy light-hearted, but it's not. And I mean there's a lot of things that needs to be busted. Like what do you have you had any experiences like this?
Yeah, I think when I first started, it's not so much anymore. I think because my just that my career, if you could call it one, has developed so much. I think at first I was really hesitant to call myself a content writer. So I went and called myself a journalist instead, which is technically true. I did do journalism. I mean, obviously wasn't my degree. I do have some experience in doing journalism, and that was what I went with. I said, I'm a journalist. I write about music. I write about video games. I write about whatever. But I mean, nowadays, obviously, as my role has changed, but as like going back into COVID, I think because more and more people were calling themselves content writers, I was a bit more comfortable with calling myself a content writer as well. But I I don't think yeah. So it was just so here's a statistic that would be quite interesting, probably to you if you didn't read our little document, but might be to readers as well. So Orbit Media uh, reported that the average blog post length is 1,427 words, which is more than 70% longer than 10 years ago. Can you imagine that? Like people are writing more words on average per article, per blog than they were 10 years ago.
I find that really weird. Like that statistic is so strange for me to interpret
Yeah. I mean,
because are we just talking like about like on average they're writing like more long form articles, like, or is it just general they're writing more words, or like because
I think
you
writing more words because when you think about it, back in the day, I think the minimum content writing, minimum like length for a post when it comes to writing articles for SEO purposes used to be 500 at the minimum.
yeah, no, I remember those days like it was just minimum, but now for SEO like the longer is
The
the way
better.
forward. Yeah.
Yeah. So content has, in that sense, has become longer and longer. Like I remember when I was doing uni, and this probably is the same for you. It took me like 3 days to write an assignment.
Oh, the amount of all-nighters that I would be in the library kind of doing assignments and like verifying, going back and like it would take me a damn length of time. And like if you think about it, I don't know how long your assignments were, but sometimes mine would be like what, 10,000 words, and I'd spend so much like in, but now I don't know if it's because I'm used to it, but it's I'm like, okay, 10,000 words.
Yeah. Oh, but yeah, there's just like it takes. Just imagine if you're watching this and you've never written 1,000 words in your life, try doing it today. It's not easy. Try writing it about your. Try writing 1,000 words about what you ate today. Right? It's not easy. You're going to waffle. You're going to go on different tangents. You're not actually going to be talking about what you had for lunch. It is difficult. It's not easy, and that's why I like. It's a skill, isn't it? We this is the skill that we have learned and we have developed, the both of us, and
You
the
know
other
what?
123 million people.
You know what? You put it in perspective there because we take it for granted actually because we're so used to doing this over time. Um, that it is hard to write about stuff if you put it in to comparison because you've not even just got to write about it to fulfill that quota,
Mm,
depending on what the assignment or project is, but you've got to make it relatable to the person. You've got to make it like grammatically correct. You've got to have the formatting. Then, depending on the level of writer that you are, you've got to have the SEO integrated, the keywords, the meta descriptions, the titles. And I'm sorry for people that don't know what these are. It's just more technicalities that get involved into it. Then also optimizing the posts, and then it doesn't stop there. Like you have to like then if you're a content writer or a blogger, like if you're then you have to create posts about it. Then you have to create more descriptions, and it actually it's really really technical, and it does take a lot of time and a lot of thought to go into the planning, and it's not easy, and also to have the confidence in your own ability to write and
mm,
to do that, it's really difficult, and it's tiring even to get the focus.
yeah. I, oh, I've got a few more statistics here as well. 58% of B2B marketers reported increased sales and revenue in 2023 thanks to content marketing. There. And like 89% of content marketers say that blog content is a top priority. It's it's stats like those that just make it mad. But then it's not easy to make money, is it? It's so difficult. It's you can't make enough money in this space, despite so many people saying that content is important, that saying writing blog articles is important. See the frustration in your face.
It's not easy to make money, because I think it's also, how do I put it? It used to be easy to make money, and we know the benefits of content writing. We know what it can bring. But the way I see it now is content writing, someone wants to hire a writer, they hire it as part of a team or as part of something else. So then you'll have your designer, then you'll have like this. And because content falls into like, I'm going to talk about SEO, but it falls into SEO like is part of an SEO strategy.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes, in my opinion, hard to quantify for them to quantify the effects of the content writing because there's so many other things involved with content writing in itself that we integrate, which makes them not want to see the value in the charge. You get what I'm saying
Yeah.
here? Like they're not translating the actual value or being able to quantify the value and set a good price because, and this is what differentiates writers here because content writing brings a lot of value to businesses, but how you not only write but what you bring with the content writing, the added
Mm.
skills, translates to the price. And I think it's not a good paid role if you don't have the added skills or the diverse, if you can't articulate what value you can bring and how you can quantify that value. I don't
Yeah.
know what I'm trying to say. I'm
Yeah.
trying to
I
like
get it.
get the, yeah. But
Yeah,
in general,
absolutely.
it's not a well-paid job.
No.
Um, it's not. And also, like, I'll be honest, nowadays, there's so many countries who have like I'll just say it out there, like Philippines, India, Bangladesh, even like Nepal. They have some amazing writers, but because of their cost of living is totally different to other countries, they have more affordable and more enticing services rates for businessmen and people are competing with that now. And they're
Mm.
competing with these high end of content writers for that rate post COVID, and people that have and competing with AI and people using AI. So all of these thrown into the mix, it's really not a profit, profitable profession.
No, it's not. But yeah, you brought up SEO, and it's just what I find quite interesting. It's from my experience as well. And here's another statement for everyone in the room. The Search Engine Journal reported that most SEO specialists agree that the most challenging part of their job is content and strategy production. And that just puts it into perspective that it's not just, we hate this phrase, but it's not just blogging. It's it is a skill, and it takes time and it takes effort. But I think I think this is more important coming from you because you're currently into it. But if anyone out there who happens to be watching this is interested in getting into content writing, do you have any pieces of advice for them?
Yeah, I think if you're wanting to start and to get into a content writing role and build a list of clients, which is doable, by the way, it is, but you just have to be prepared to work off a very low budget rate and upskill yourself and find your niche. I would suggest to start off on Medium, like we did. Start writing blogs. It's a great publication. There's other ones too, even LinkedIn, and start writing things and just start getting your content out there and posting and refining and start learning and also and then start to reach out to potential clients and get on Upwork. And even if you have never created a blog post or an email or whatever, create your own and then just start sending them to them because you've got to start somewhere. And I think it's mandatory now as a writer that you have to have a LinkedIn profile. Because if you
Mm,
don't have your own blog and if you have Medium or whether you don't have, you need to have some sort of profile where you have an active presence and people can see what you're producing and how you're building your network and how you position yourself. Because at the end of the day, it comes down to trust and credibility. And if you haven't got a big portfolio or a website, then if you have something they can quickly see, it's going to be a good way for people to get a basic sense of trust. So start writing posts on Medium. Even if you don't want to write it under your name and write it under an alias, that's totally okay. But start writing content and start just writing, and it just gets better in practice. And then start learning as you go along. Because the more you read about things, or the more you listen to podcasts like this, if you don't get around to doing it, you're not going to get into being a content writer. But it is possible.
yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I don't. Do we want to talk to the more experienced people?
Experienced people. Well, if anyone's a content writer now in 2024 who's experienced, then my advice for you is to start learning different tools and techniques and you either niche down or you start diversifying and maybe offering more services than content writing.
Mm,
So I would suggest getting into graphic design or learning branding and start coupling up with those like into a package so you can
mm,
really present like a one size fits all solution to potential clients or business owners because they're so tired of looking for different things. If you can combine two, I mean, at the end of the day, I know it's subjective and people say you're a content writer, this is your specialty, and the graphic designers that this should never be mixed. But sometimes people want a easy way, and I think you should start diversifying and tapping into other industries and finding how your work can be in parallel with another work that you can learn and present it as a package.
yeah, I absolutely agree with that. That diversification is so important. That's how I got here in the first place. I wasn't just doing photography. I went into writing content. I went into journalism, and it has got me to where I am today. So I completely agree. But I guess another thing that I should add to that is uh, for the more experienced writers, if you ever come across, as I personally have, like people with, that don't, oh, I guess, for lack of a better way to say it, it's don't discount people with less experience than you. Don't turn your nose up. Like, we are all, here in this space together at the end of the day. And yeah, sure, we're in competition with each other as well. I mean, not so much anymore, but but just in general, like, I think we should all kind of band together and say, like, help people take content more seriously. And as I said, just like, people are using content everywhere. The internet runs on content, but we're still not taking us seriously as we should. It's all fun and games, like writing LinkedIn posts talking about how expensive you are and how it's completely worth it. But we we need to do it sort of as a collective rather than just singular people. Just, this is why content is important. This is why, you need us in the space, and this is why we need to be taken seriously.
I think it's really important that people do it as a collective, but not for their own gain. Like,
Mm,
I'm sorry to butt in on this, but I'm seeing people do this on LinkedIn, and they're like, that's their way of, yeah, it's a hard one. I do think we should definitely promote it and like experience those to definitely like defend the point, but in a way that it benefits others. Because what I'm seeing is people are doing it so much like, I mean, I'm not doing it publicly, but like they're doing it to gain more clients for their own sake. But I definitely think there needs to be a general consensus like on this and explain more, whether it's online or offline, especially to people who are not used to or aware of like working with a content writer. And it needs to be explained more to people who are using AI or like
mm.
wanting quick fixes. Let's put it that way.
Quick fixes. That's a whole other topic for another day. Anyway, so, is there anything else that we wanted to touch? Anything that off the top of your head that you want to make sure that the world knows?
So not really. I think in terms of this, content writing is a role that is very vast. There's so much to do out there, whether it's from research, like planning, researching, writing, to publishing, to refining, and even like promoting it. There's so much to do, there's so much to learn, and there's so many different types,
Mm,
which can be more in a different post, that it's not something that should be taken lightly. It's something that's going to become even um, more required in the future because we're in an information age where we have so much, and you need skilled people to be able to capture people's attention in this kind of day and age. And it's not something that AI is good. Like, that's another point also, that not just the emotional element, but AI hasn't got the capabilities to capture someone's attention, especially consumers, in this short period of time in this fast-paced world. So you need trained people to be able to help reach people, or businesses, consumers or businesses, to cater to their attention. So content writing is necessary. Copywriting is, but another like, parallel. But this type of work is necessary, and it's going to be even more in demand. So people who are looking to get into this space, don't worry, it is competitive, but once you find your niche, once you upskill yourself, it's really, really, it can be lucrative and can be very enticing, but it's how you get into it and how you learn to adapt and grow with the technology.
so, final question: what is the state of content writing nowadays?
Dun, dun, dun. I think the state of content writing is there. Um, there is a market for it. but it's not what it used to be. It's not the case of just writing things and publishing. There is a lot of work involved, more than ever before, and I think you can do it, but you have to dedicate a lot of time, and you have to know a lot of different things, way more than previous. You have to know algorithms, you need to know AI, you need to know SEO algorithms goes hand in hand. You need to know different types of writing, different types of content, new ways of presenting content. So you have to really, really be on the ball um, to survive. So it's there. The state of content writing for me exists, but it's so hands-on that you have to be prepared to sacrifice a lot of time to dedicate to becoming a writer or being a writer, let's put it that way, and competing. What
Yeah.
about you? What do you think? What do you think the state is like?
It's such a deep question, actually, now that you've turned it back onto me. Um, I think, well, the fact of the matter is that content is what makes, again, like I say this time and time again, I'm going to sound like a broken record now, but the internet runs on content, and it's so important just in general because, like, sure, we've got Instagram and TikTok, and now LinkedIn is going to bring in videos as well, but at the end of the day, everyone is they're reading captions, everyone's reading blog posts to get information. Even, like, everyone is reading what's coming out of ChatGPT. That's still content. So it exists. The state of content writing exists. It's a bit of a mess currently, if I'm honest, but it'll take a while to get fixed. But I think content writing in general is possibly stronger than ever now. But if you asked me a year ago, I would have said we're all screwed. But now everyone's kind of becoming a bit more aware of AI. People are being more aware of the stuff they're reading. I think now, yeah, I think it's just stronger than ever.
Stronger than ever, more profitable than ever, and something that you should explore. And also, one more thing is I'm gonna go against the grain here, but business owners, start getting into it because you can do, anyone
If you
can do
haven't
it.
already.
If you haven't, yes, if you haven't already, start getting into it without AI, and you can train yourself and become very good at it to market your own products and services if you dedicate time. Otherwise, you'll hire someone like me. They'll make money and help you, of course, but it's really, you can do it if everyone can do it if they train themselves and learn and evolve. But it takes time. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's why business people need people like you, because they want to focus on building and growing their business. And they can't dedicate that time to what you have dedicated your time to for so many years. 5 years now?
Yeah, five years, maybe going into six soon. Yeah.
On that note, hi Alex.
Yeah, hire me, please.
So, we haven't really talked about um, what we want people to do at the end of this, but I guess we should wrap things out. So I guess, I mean, wherever you're listening, wherever you're watching, like, I guess give us a follow. If you're interested in hearing what else we have to say, let us know. We Regardless of what you say, we are still going to be doing this anyway.
So give us a follow. We'll put a LinkedIn put at the end of this podcast. And we'll also, if you give us a follow on our Instagram handle, which will be live by the time this goes out, at Untamed Ink Pod. And we'll put it in the show notes and on here. So Instagram Untamed Ink Pod, and on our LinkedIn accounts, which we'll add in also for now. And we'll let you know when the next episode is going live, and hopefully have less waffle and more information rich conversation in a shorter period of time.